Hello again, everybody. This is Lance Russell with Championship Wrestling with another big week. Join us right now.
All right. Hey, welcome to the Double Dropkick Show. I'm Heath Mulligan.
I'm Mark Whitman.
And this is a super special episode.
Why don't you shut up for a minute?
I was going to say...
And let me introduce the greatest faction in pro wrestling. I would go ahead and say history. You got the Four Horsemen, you got DX, you got the NWO imbeciles compared to these gentlemen that we have here with us today, the Highland Embassy. Well, 2/3 of the Highland Embassy. I noticed one of you fellas is conspicuously absent.
Well, I don't know when this episode is going to be.
Well, that's a good point.
But listen, Mark, I was here at the beginning interviewing this gentleman, the Scottish Prince. I interviewed him when this whole idea of the embassy came about. I've been here from day one. Were you there?
It doesn't matter where I was at then. What matters is where I'm at now.
Right.
And who's here with us now. So, gentlemen, you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I would be delighted. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Heath, for taking all the credit for being the first one to interview me. Just because you were the first doesn't mean you were the best. Let's just get that out in the open.
And as he tells all the ladies, you can never be first, but you can always be next.
I don't think he tells anybody that.
I am the Scottish Prince Joshua Oglesby, and I'm happy to be here today on the Double Dropkick Show. I am joined also by the Duke of St. Andrews, Mr. J.C. Harper.
How are you doing?
Otherwise known as the Duke of Sanders.
The Duke of Sanders.
Don't even go there with me.
I just had to do that
Duck
one
of
time.
death.
And if I'm being billed at a certain weight, I have been billed at over 1,000 pounds, a.k.a. 130-something stone. And
would this be by the same gentleman who billed me as the Duke of Sanders?
the Duke of Sanders, and I weigh over 1,000 pounds.
Allegedly.
I believe my weight in stone is roughly 12 to 13, something like that stone. So 130-something stone is definitely not my weight if you were at that particular show.
That's
Can't
funny.
imagine who the dip was that did that.
Oh, man.
I don't know.
I got a couple of ideas.
Hey, since stupidity isn't a crime, he's free to go.
You're right.
That's right. Hey, guys, we wanted to just kind of hang out today and just talk with you about wrestling in general, but we ask everybody that we have on the show, every wrestler is what got you into wrestling? What's the wrestling you grew up with? So, JC, we'll let you start.
It's a pretty easy answer for me. I grew up in a household where every night, or every Saturday night, I should say, WCW was on, and we were eating McDonald's. I was on the carpet with my beach towel, eating my Happy Meal, watching guys like Sting and Vader.
Why were you on a beach towel?
I didn't mess up the carpet, man.
You didn't have like regular bath towels?
It was bigger.
Wait,
That extra
so your family's tradition was on Saturday night to go to McDonald's and come home and watch wrestling.
On beach towels, Mark.
On beach towels.
Keep up.
Oh, easy. I was the only one on the beach towel.
Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
So I grew up watching the blonde-haired version of Sting, guys like that, and Vader. My mom was a diehard Sting fan, so I guess by nature I kind of adapted to that. And my dad was a diehard Flair fan, and so I kind of grew up watching WCW and didn't really get into WWF until, well into the Attitude Era. So that's kind of the first moment I remember seeing wrestling. And as an 8-year-old and 9-year-old watching Nitro through 98 and 99, that was kind of the standard for us.
Yeah. What about you, Josh?
My first memory was, I was probably, anywhere from 5 to 7. And it was my dad turning on WCW, again, blonde-haired Sting, crazy colored face paint. We didn't watch it a ton, and I don't even remember seeing any wrestling matches, just Sting the character, because my mom would not allow my dad to let me watch wrestling. She would have him cut it off and didn't think I needed to watch stuff like that. Well, skip to a few years later when I'm roughly 9 or 10. My mom's with a new husband who loves wrestling, so I guess she let it slide. I don't know. I came home from my dad's one day, and my 2 stepbrothers and stepsister had a Stone Cold VHS tape in.
Nice.
And I saw this bald-headed guy who had no respect for authority, flipping the middle finger, stuff like that. And as a good kid that I was, straight A student, it intrigued me. I was like, whoa, this who just does this?
Right.
So I was hooked during the Attitude Era. I mean, I remember watching Raw with the Stone Cold and the beer truck. That was exactly when I started, and I was a wrestling fan of him ever since, and didn't really get into the whole wrestling side of things until 15, 16. That sort of thing.
Hey, let me ask you this, Mark. People our age who grew up watching Mid-Atlantic, it seems like most of us, we became super fans. And we bought in and we've spent a lot of money, but didn't, and some got into promoting or whatever, but didn't really become wrestlers. Whereas now, it just seems like
like me?
Huh?
You mean like me?
Well, no, you became no. You became a wrestler, but what I'm saying is, I don't know what I'm saying. It just seems like kids that grew up in the Attitude Era, it just seems like there's a lot more people trying to be wrestlers now.
And I tell you what I really believe it is.
Okay.
I think it's probably easier to get into the wrestling business now.
Right.
Than it was then.
Yeah.
Now you can watch it, and you guys maybe you don't feel the same way, but I mean it was a closed off society.
Yeah.
For a while, and it wasn't easy to get in. And I've said it before. I mean when I got in and started training, somebody actually did the smartening up process.
Right.
As though you know what I mean? Like, 'cause you didn't. There was this assumption that you were just a mark, and it was okay. Let's send it was, and obviously it was Dutch Mantel's brother. I mean, we talked over the telephone a couple of times, and he was like, "Okay, this is heels and baby faces and this," and he broke the whole thing down for me, and it was a real smartening up process that happened.
It's interesting you talk about having to be smartened up, because I started in, I want to say late 2005 was the first time I stepped into a ring.
Right.
And, most of the population had computers and internet, but not everybody did. I was one that didn't. I didn't know the term heel, babyface. I didn't know that. And I was 15 when I started. So I remember being trained, just being shown how to run the ropes and bump. But honestly, not long before my first match, I didn't get psychology. I didn't get anything like that. So I kind of got smartened up as I went along. So, someone getting in the wrestling business today, it's the people who want to book the territories and stuff like that. They think they have this whole thing figured out.
Right.
I literally had no clue. So I felt like I came in a good way. Like I was one of the last to get brought in that didn't know everything that the internet had told me.
Right. That's cool. That's interesting, man. But I mean, would you agree it's probably a little easier to get in
Definitely.
than it used to be?
Well, now, yeah. I mean, how many more places to train? It's a lot more.
Right. I mean, you got like a 3-count training academy that you can go to and learn how to be a wrestler. I mean,
I hear their trainers are top notch.
They are.
I hear they put out good trainees too.
Yes. So Jordan, how did you break in?
Josh and I were both going to the same church for a while, and he kind of got involved in the youth staff where I was involved, and through a mutual friend, he introduced me to Josh, and he was just getting to launch I guess you'd call it the original version of the 3-count training school, and I was a little hesitant. I was a lot heavier at the time. I was a little hesitant about my size, about being husky, and all that.
The opposite of a natural athlete.
Yes.
And I don't mean that in a derogatory or anything. It's a testament to how far you've came.
Sure. And so I was actually going to train to become a ref. And, he through lots of just pushing, got me to try the wrestler side of things. And I still remember, the first bump I took, it knocked the breath out of me, but, it made me realize I can do this, learn how to run the ropes. And just coming up through guys like him and Ace, showing you how to do basics, teaching you psychology, much like he was talking about, he was the last to come through without being smartened up. I think the internet's done a lot of damage, and unfortunately, I knew, it was a general work, knew basic terminology. I wouldn't say I'd go so far as to say I was a mark at the time, but it was already, the cat was already well out of the bag.
Right.
Guys were spoiling the fun, and it was just something I'd never set out to do. There was never that moment where I said, this is what I want to do for a living, because once again, it wasn't as prevalent then as it is now.
Right.
Now all you got to do is do a Google search. You could probably find 10 schools within a 20-mile radius of your house. There was just no thought of it because that wasn't talked about then, and so it wasn't until I got introduced to Josh that I knew there was an opportunity for it. And just at the encouragement of my then-time girlfriend, who knew I really loved wrestling, she said, "Just give it a shot. You're always going to wonder what happens if you never give it a shot." And she knew I was hesitant, but just through encouragement, I gave it a shot. And I bet you, if she had to go over again, she wouldn't have asked me to do it then.
Right.
If she knew now, or knew then what she knew now, we'd never be here probably. But
And I was listening to something I believe Raven was saying the other day on a podcast. The failure isn't the guy who, gets in the ring, laces up a pair of boots, and doesn't make it to some big promotion or get a contract. That you were just unsuccessful at one of your goals. You weren't a failure. The failure is the guy sitting on the couch with a beer who said, "Yeah, I could do that. I want to do that," but he never takes the first step to becoming whatever it is he sets out to be. So kudos to you, Mr. Harper.
Thank you, sir.
So Josh, where did the transition go from just wrestling to starting to train some guys? How did that all start?
The gentleman who originally trained myself and Ace, the Stray Cat, Brody Chase, who's just phenomenal teacher, can't say enough good things about him. He had a wrestling school, and he closed the doors for whatever reason, and he had 2 rings that were available for purchase. And I always kind of had a dream to own a ring just for myself and any of the guys I was close with to perfect our craft, rather than just getting to a show a few hours early and having those few hours to practice or work on things you need to work on. So owning a ring was like, that was a big deal to me. When we heard that he was selling one, we thought, man, we could open up something small, and a few guys who want to get started, we could help them get started. And to be, just completely honest and clear, I don't think we're some type of finishing school before you go on. Like I don't think we're anything like that.
Right.
We are to get someone started, and our mission statement is to get someone up and running. And if we can be just one of the many steps in that process, we're confident that we can do that. Between myself and Ace, we've got about 22 years of experience together. I think that more than qualifies us to get someone started.
Right.
Just get someone started, and can be a platform and a boost. And I love the coaching leadership aspect. I feel like that's something I've been called to do. And when the opportunity was there to buy a ring, I said, let's do it.
Cool. Let me ask you, Mark. I know when we're working with guys, when Josh and Ace are working with guys, we're really trying to work on all aspects of the business. Jordan talked a little bit about psychology. Josh talked about how they didn't really talk about psychology until it's close to first match. What about when you were coming up? Like, was that even like? I guess I'm trying to. What was the difference between what they're describing, their training, and your training?
I was in the ring a month after I started taking bumps
For a match.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of. It was like I learned how to do the international spot. And that was about it. I learned how to lock up and take a bump, and that was like, here you go. And these guys are not doing that.
I understand
Right.
too. The school that I started at with Brody, he had at the time he had a completely different way of training. It was on Friday nights. It was called AWC, Amateur Wrestling Council. Now he had 2 other shows he ran during the week, one on Tuesday and one on Saturday for experienced guys.
Right.
Friday night was just for guys like myself, Ace, and just 2 or 3 others that are currently wrestling and have done pretty good for themselves. And I know one of the guys to pass through his school was Xavier Woods.
Oh, wow.
At the time known as Awesome Austin Creed. So it was really cool to get to train with him. He was phenomenal 10 years ago.
Right.
And now to see the stuff he's doing now is just awesome. It gives guys like us hope. It's what he's done is awesome, but it was a little bit different. You'd pay your money, you'd get trained how to do wrestling moves. Nothing really big on psychology, and he did that for a reason. He didn't want you to be smartened up to the business because you weren't paying to be smartened up. You were paying to get in the ring and to be bumped and run the ropes and just get a couple little techniques down. Nothing major. Well, then after that, he would, after about 3 hours of training and in the ring, he would open the doors to anybody who wanted to watch. I don't even think he really charged them. But he was getting us in the ring, and it was a good way to get started.
Yeah.
Then he started a more formal training that took place on Sunday mornings, and that lasted, 4 or 5 months before he shut his doors, and that's where he taught us psychology. It was more expensive.
Yeah.
And it's the only type of wrestling training or school that I've heard about it's quite like that. It was a little different, out of the box way of doing things, but I'm sure it kept his light bill paid, and it was a soft introduction, I guess you'd say, and then it transitioned into a little more psychology and things of that nature.
I know when we talked a year ago, it was a big thing not having a place for a ring. I know even I talked with you, Jordan, you and Scott, and how you were kind of missing that. And so we've had the ring now. We've been training for since March?
Roughly.
So how, Jordan, how has that helped you being able to actually work out and train?
Well, for starters, I don't think it's any secret wrestling's very taxing cardiovascularly, and if nothing else, I can at least attribute the fact that we now have a place to get a little extra cardio in that goes along with the sport has helped. But not only that, just getting in there every Saturday and not having a 3-month window between shows to get in there and work on simple things like working the basics, footwork, going back over things we did a couple of years ago with a few of the new trainees has helped as well. Not throwing any names out there yet,
right.
But that's helped me in the long term because it's reinforced things that I already knew, but things I maybe had forgotten.
Right.
And then just working on basic, I guess the old school armbar, hammerlock, just various holds. Working with Josh and Ace just to get those to where they're like clockwork. You can do it without thinking about it.
Right. Right.
So it's definitely boosted my confidence. I'm probably more confident going into the shows we have in the next few months than I have been in a couple of years because I've done a little extra work,
right.
Got a few more opinions. And I think one of the things that we didn't do when we first started training that we've started doing in the last couple of months that's going to help guys who come forward in the future through 3 count is learning how to work a hard camera.
Yeah.
For sure, because, my first show, I remember just getting instructed, the hard camera is over here.
Right.
But I didn't really understand at the time what that meant.
Right.
And I think, guys that are coming through now and are getting trained, they're going to get a whole new aspect that I'm not even sure a lot of schools cover.
Right.
It's just not something that they think about.
Yeah. It's been really helpful for me as the guy who's trying to figure out where to put the cameras to see, how a match is laid out and to see how it's worked because my job is to tell the story and make everybody look good. So it's trying to figure out, where to put those, where to put everything. Josh, what about you? How have you felt the last couple of months?
I love it, especially now. I've taken. I'm at a place right now where the past few years, I didn't take wrestling quite as seriously because it was something that through a few events that made me say I might need to back off, and some other things I could get into, but it'd be a little lengthy. But
get into it, man. We got all the time in the world. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
No, it's just some personal decisions I had to make. I was 23, and one moment in particular, I was wrestling, I believe, Billy Brash at CWA in Orangeburg, and we did a superplex from the top rope, and I had a bad landing. I really felt it on my lower back. Nothing, career threatening or anything like that, but I remember not being able to really walk right the next day. And my brother-in-law at the time, who was probably about 6 or 7, he wanted to play. And he wanted to play wrestle, and I'm like, buddy, I can't play wrestle because of the real wrestling I had to do last night. And I saw the look of disappointment in his eye. He was kind of bummed out. He was spending the night with us, and it broke my heart a little bit. And this was before I'd even thought about having kids. And I thought one day I might have a kid, and she may not need a wrestler, or he may not need a wrestler, but they're going to need a dad.
Yes, sir.
So after counseling with my good friend Nikita Koloff, I told him I was thinking about.
Hang on, you dropped a name. Let me pick that up for you.
Hey, I don't get to do that often. There's no shame here.
Yeah, me and Big Nick, we were.
Me and Nicky.
me and old Nick. But anyways, y'all can give me crap for that for the next month if you want to.
That's
the way
all
I went
good.
into that was pretty.
No, that was great.
My good friend Nikita Koloff, who speaks great English nowadays, by the way.
Yes.
But
Took a lot of hard work to get there, though.
it did. But anyway, after counseling with him, he's just got a really level head about things like that. He said it's a smart decision. He said if you decide to back off, he said you've got your health to look forward to the rest of your life. So for at least a year, I took off wrestling completely. But after starting to get back into it, now having a ring, and now having a little girl who's 3 months old, I don't know, something in me. I guess if the business of professional wrestling gets in you, it's something that it just doesn't like to leave, and that's what it is for me. Being a little more cautious, not doing quite the crazy stuff I was trying to do when I was 16, just being a lot smarter.
Yeah.
That goes a long way when you're trying to preserve your body and things like that. Not saying I'm not going to give it my all when I go out to the ring, but having this ring, to answer your question, Heath, having this ring's really given me the opportunity as many times a week as I want to get in there and just, perfect my craft and try new things, that's not in front of a crowd, because that's always risky. You want to practice and perfect stuff, but doing it in front of a crowd's pretty risky, which is all I had for about 8 years or
Right.
so. That's all I had was a ring to try stuff in. Sometimes you bomb, sometimes it looks great, and
Right.
you just throw whatever you can to the wall and hope it sticks. But it's helped me, and then I love the coaching aspect and having new guys to get them in the ring. One guy we're working with, Kyle, he's just to see him go, just blast off like he has, and
Right.
fast learner, and a guy who's taking it seriously. That's the guys I want to work with.
Right.
Is the ones who really want to take it seriously. So it's been great.
That's
Go ahead. Now, don't allow me to. Go ahead. Don't let me stop you.
I was just going to make a brief comment, and then I was just going to say it's been really cool to me as we've
He's
all.
a mark. Oh, he's such a mark. It's been so cool to him. He wants to pay for seminars just to sit there and listen to people talk about wrestling.
There's a lot of knowledge.
What I was going to say
There's a lot of knowledge.
was
I'm just picking it.
when we're all working together, like we're all
I'm
trying
a
to make
mark too, just
we're
so
all
you
trying to
know.
make each other better, and that's been
I think we're all Marks.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think none of us would be here if we weren't.
Your legal name is Mark, but
Yeah,
we're all
legally,
Marks.
yeah, we're all
We're all
Marks.
all right. Now, what intelligent thing did you have to say?
I just thought that was good what you said. No.
Thanks, Mr. Farley.
Yeah, no.
Do you like what I said about Nikita
yeah,
Koloff?
About
About my good friend Nikita Koloff?
So how we'll jump ahead a little bit now, and I know he's talked to you before a little bit, but talk about the evolution of your gimmick, and then how Mr. Harper here played into that, and how you two kind of got together and what the goal is for the Highland Embassy, and what do you want to get. I know it's a lot to talk about, but you get where I'm going. Talk where the genesis of it, where it come from, the ideas, how you figured into it, and what y'all's relationship is like in wrestling and in real life.
As far as the relationship goes, he's the prince. That's all that needs to be said.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on your end, maybe there's probably a lot more else, a lot more stuff to talk about. But so we did a lot of shows in Liberty in the Pickens County area. I went to school in Liberty, all that jazz, and so being the babyface, it was an easy gimmick to be the hometown hero.
Right.
And if I wrestled in Pickens, I'm hailing from Pickens County, so they love that there too.
Right.
So I did that for a few years, and simultaneously back in around 2011 and 2010, I was going to CWA in Orangeburg to try out this new Scottish gimmick, and it started getting over. I mean, who doesn't like a good foreign heel?
Right.
It was easy. Music, I'm not like the biggest music guy, but I think music, offers inspiration. And I'm weird. I like listening to the bagpipes. I like listening to all kinds of stuff. So I was listening to bagpipes, just going through my phone, trying to find different stuff. And I thought, what if there's any heavy metal bagpipe music? That'd be really cool. So I found this band called Skiltron out of Scotland, and I heard one of their songs was Bagpipes of War. And I thought, man, too bad I'm not.
That's a great song, man.
I love it.
That song.
I know. It's heavy. The guitars, the bagpipes. It's it takes something like the bagpipes that not everybody likes. There's an old joke that what's the difference between a set of bagpipes and an onion? Well, nobody cries when you cut up a set of bagpipes, but I personally love them. So, anyways, I heard that song and thought, man, that would be a killer entrance theme, and that's where it started. The ball started rolling. I thought, man, I could do this Scottish gimmick to where, I was forced to grow up in America and all this, and so, I wouldn't do the accent. And then I thought, what if I did do the accent? So I started perfecting it, and I didn't just go out there and just try to sound Scottish. I actually studied for the accent to get the gimmick across. Right. So I thought, what's better than an authentic Scottish heel, to really get the crowd to really get. You wanted to say something?
And as far as when he says perfecting the accent, as somebody who watched him perfect it, I mean, he put the hours in, man. Right. I mean, to hear that from the genesis to now, it's amazing how much work he's put into it.
Oh, that's good.
There's this little thing online. It's a website dedicated to that, and they have these little stories that you listen to that I guess have all the the different ways to pronounce words and just how to carry the accent. And you can pick, a 27-year-old male from Glasgow, whatever, a 48-year-old female from Edinburgh, Scotland. And it was this goofy little story about Sarah and her goose. Mm-hmm. And I listened to that thing probably 100 times, just going down the road. I had a job that required me to drive a lot, so I got to study that. So when I was confident with that, debuted it at CWA. It seemed to get over. So when I decided that the babyface hometown hero back here was getting stale, and I was getting stale with it. I was getting bored with it. I thought now would be the good time. What better time than my return after a year of absence to make the big heel turn, and then announce my newfound Scottish heritage.
Right.
And with Jordan, or excuse me, J.C. Harper, with him being still sort of a new to the business, new trainee, right. I thought this would be a good avenue to have him partner up with me and Scott Stallion being new too. It'd give them a platform to be in the ring with us, so we can help coach, guide a little bit, things like that. Okay. And then our relationship outside of the wrestling business, we became I mean, he's one of my best friends. So wrestling's brought a lot of cool people into my life.
Mm-hmm. It'll do that, man. It'll do that. This is way off subject. We were having this discussion the other day. We had gone, I think, to a comic book shop or something. And you walk into these comic book stores, and there's like, if you like, whether you like Batman and Superman or whether you like the super indie comics, just like with wrestling, you got WWE and then you got the PWGs of the world. So, but there's two or three different types of people that read comic books, and they all tend to look down upon one another. And they and we walk into like a GameStop, and it's like, just because I don't live on a video game, so like I just want to play Call of Duty like an hour a day,
right,
once a week. So I understand. I don't know as much about comic books as you. I don't know as much about video games as you. But with wrestling fans, when we go to these fan fests or we go to shows, you don't have that.
Right.
It's like you'll be in a room full of 100 wrestling fans, and there might be 30 or 40 conversations going on, and everybody just is. There's something we all like.
Yeah.
Whether you like Hogan and Savage, or whether you like PWG, or whether you like Steve Austin or Ric Flair, we all agree on something. We all agree on something. We don't all like the same match types. Right. We don't all like the same wrestlers and that type of thing. But there's always something about wrestling that just brings people together and gives you something to talk about. So that's just it's not really a question. That is just.
Well, I mean, so Jordan, before we get into kind of what Mark's talking about, when they approached you with doing this Highland Embassy thing, what were your thoughts on that?
I thought it would be a good challenge. I've always been a heel at 3 count. Some would say it's because I'm a natural jerk in real life, and it's just me turned up to 10. I'm allowed to say things I can't say elsewhere, but I thought it'd be fun. And I love tag team wrestling, always have, and it would give me a chance to team with Scott some, and a chance to team with Josh some, and a chance to maybe even try managing if they want to tag.
Right.
And I thought it would just be a good chance, if nothing else, to try a couple of different roles. I love being a heel, and I knew this would instantly, be a hated gimmick because it's, people have their American pride. So for me, it was no question. If they asked me to do it, I was going to say yeah.
Yeah.
And, I try to let Josh come up with most of the ideas, and whatever he feels is the right thing to do, that's what we do. I mean, ultimately, he came up with the gimmick. I'm just happy to be a part of it to whatever aspect it may be.
When I first heard about it, it got me really excited because there really weren't any other factions
Right.
in 3 count. I mean, you guys kind of have the market on that as far as a faction, so I'm excited about that. So Mark talked about, we all like different things. So when you're watching wrestling now, I mean, who is it that I said, hey, we're going to watch this guy, a couple of his matches, and y'all would be like, yeah, I'm in on that. That's who I want to watch.
I really like a variety of wrestling, in various types, various sizes. As a bigger guy, I tend to like guys like Michael Elgin, who use power but can be fleet-footed. That being said, I'm eating the Cruiserweight Classic up right now because there are guys there that just are phenomenal coming through the air.
Right.
So I like to incorporate multiple styles, but I think right now more than ever, the indie scene is on fire. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree with that. And in the last year, I've gotten more into things like PWG and watching through the High Spots Network, PWX, shows like that. Like when the Sabre Jr. and Cedric Alexander match was put on YouTube for free. I mean, that was, going into the candy shop for me.
Right.
Both those guys are fantastic. And just watching 2 guys put on a clinic, 2 guys that are really athletic but keeping it, for the most part, on the ground.
Right.
I mean, things like that weren't accessible when I started training a few years ago. And just to see how far that's come, that's, and there's nothing wrong with your main companies like WWE, but it's like you guys always say, if you aren't that entertained, find something else to watch. And right now I'm more entertained watching, New Japan and watching Pro Wrestling Guerrilla than I am watching WWE. So for me, that's my, I guess, opinion and preference.
Yeah.
So looking back, though, on the history of the wrestling business, I'll start with you since you just talked. Mr. Prince. That's what I call him, Heath. Mr. Prince.
You also leave out the UA when you call me, instead of Joshua Oglesby, you can just call me Josh Oglesby. And I'm not calling you down for that at all. I think it's great because since you're my biggest fan, you're the only one allowed to do that. So take notes, Heath. You can't call me Josh Oglesby.
I can do that.
You don't get to call him Josh.
No, he works for me. So,
but looking back on the history of the business, who would influence you the most, you think?
it's funny because I was never a big. I would always go back and watch, the big high spot matches of the past. Andre Hogan. I'd get into stuff like that, but just within the past year, so I've really started studying guys like Dynamite Kid, which I should have been doing this 10 years ago. I'll, be the first to admit I wasn't the biggest historian when it came to wrestling. But watching Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask, man, I'm learning a ton from that.
They reinvented the cruiserweight style.
Right, and back when I dare to say the cruiserweight style really didn't, there wasn't a name for cruiserweight, I don't think.
Yeah, it was just a junior heavyweight.
Right, but they were doing stuff that I felt like was so ahead of their time, but they kept it technical and they weren't boring. I think
everything was tight.
Right.
There weren't any holes in their work.
Right. I think that the WWE universe wasn't ready for Finlay and Regal at SummerSlam.
Right.
Was 07, 08, something like that. While that was just, probably the best wrestling match on the card,
no doubt.
it got a gigantic boring chant.
Right.
But you take.
Have you watched their WCW stuff?
I've watched a lot of like Malenko and.
The Finlay and Regal.
I've caught a little bit of it.
WCW, man, they had some great hard, like busting each other's faces.
Back when they had that, it was like that weird arena.
Yeah,
it was awful.
They did one at the Junkyard, but they actually had some really good matches.
Right.
You definitely should go back and check those out if you haven't seen.
Am I the only one that when we talk about the old wrestling that found it odd that Nelson Royal was always the NWA junior heavyweight champion, and he was like 50 years old? I always thought that was...
Well, Denny Brown was also there.
Right, but they kind of went back and forth, but I just never got that about Nell.
Yeah, it was kind of a strange... Well, he's an old school guy.
But I didn't think he was that small. Like, I thought literally junior had to do with age.
Okay, that makes sense that you would think.
So I just never...
Shut up, he's talking.
Did you see that, Heath? Did you see how fast that just happened? Like
that escalated quickly.
He can get that done anytime he wants.
You said, and he's not talking.
Right.
I'm currently talking. That's cool. Heath, what are your thoughts on what just happened?
What's it like to constantly be cuckolded by an alpha male?
It doesn't matter what your thoughts are, Heath. Anyway,
I was waiting on that one.
Like I was saying, what were we talking about, Mark, before I was rudely interrupted
It was something brilliant.
By Heath's...
That some backwood gibberish interrupted.
Right.
I believe we were talking about Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid.
I'm offended.
Fit Finley.
Listen, for the first time, after all of that just happened, I'm offended that you used the backwards gibberish. You normally say that for one person, and to throw me in there, I'll have you know that is ridiculous.
By the way, that's one of the greatest cut downs I ever heard another wrestler say. Was at Fan Fest. This guy stood up and asked Jim Cornette a question, and he said, "I don't know what you just said, but kudos, because it was the finest example of backwoods gibberish I've ever heard."
Was that the guy? Oh, yeah, I know.
That was what's his name. Yeah,
that's too funny. What I was saying was, I think it's cool that guys like Angle and Benoit took, elements from Finlay and Regal from a match that was just, a thunderous, boring chant. They can take that, add a little impact to it,
right,
and have people on their toes the whole match. Angle, probably when Heath asked about the only intelligent question he's asked is, who do you think of when you think, hey, let's talk about this guy. Do you want to watch those matches? Kurt Angle, I mean, like him and Benoit just had it out.
Yeah, he's so good. He's so good, man.
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd never been a big Benoit fan, but just really going back and watching his stuff, him and Angle they tore it up.
Have you seen Regal and Benoit from the Brian Pillman Memorial Show? Either one of you guys ever seen that match?
Yeah, it's actually on one of the DVDs Josh gave me a few years back, the Hard Knocks DVD.
Yeah, it's on that.
One of the most brutal spots I've ever seen is the hard way headbutt shot that they give each other.
Yeah, it's such a good match.
Yeah, can you
Another
bring
guy
that,
like I
can you
would
bring
say-
that Saturday? So
Sure.
Thank you.
When I think about you and your style, normally I wouldn't say this on the air. We just talk about stuff. Like, you should watch all of the Brian Pillman heel work after he turned and became the
loose
Hollywood
cannon.
Blondes and all that stuff when he
Right.
first got. And then, like, when he went back and he and Austin were feuding, like that period of Brian Pillman's career, man, watch all of that you can. Because you remind me of him a little bit, like with the right tuning.
Okay.
Could do so. I don't know the drop kicks and stuff, because he was like, he threw one of the best drop kicks you ever gonna see.
I don't think you've ever seen me throw a drop kick, Mark.
Well, that's true, and you do throw. I'm sorry, I don't mean to. I'm not insulting you when I say that, but what I mean is
We're cool, but we ain't that cool to be dissing my. I'm just
the
kidding.
high flying stuff.
Right,
is what I'm
right,
getting
right.
at. He was like one of those early high.
He was an innovator. Yeah.
But when he stopped doing that, when he became a heel, because that just the psychology of a heel not doing anything to elicit a pop from the crowd is
Right.
a lost art.
Right.
And he kind of had, and Owen Hart, I thought, had that ability too. When he was the heel, he would do things. Chris Jericho is the best right now.
Right.
Of not doing anything to elicit a positive response from the people.
Right.
So can I ask you guys about this? Because this goes along with something we were talking about earlier.
I'll allow you to ask me a question, Heath.
Thank you, sir. Your Highness. Is when I look at a lot of the independent stuff, what you just said, that Pillman changed his moveset. But now it's like everybody has this. It's like a video game.
Right.
Everybody's got the same moveset. It's like there's no thought to that. It's like every time I watch an indie wrestling match, in most cases, it's in a sense like UFC. They're just fighting to be fighting to see who's better. It's not about heel, babyface, good, evil.
Right.
And so everybody's just doing whatever moves they want to do, which is, for me, that's fine. Like Cedric Alexander and Ibushi, that was great. But it's like, I don't want that all the time. I need that psychology. I need that.
Oh, it's like if you watch a movie and everybody's a good guy.
Right.
Everybody's like, to me, you have like a good wrestling angle should be built just like a good movie, where you introduce what the hero is and what his motivation is, and then you introduce the bad guy and here's his motivation, and not just introduce him. I always say Frankenstein had to kill a couple of villagers to get over. When you got a big bad that you're introducing, he needs to beat the slop out of a couple of people to say this man is dangerous. And then upon the first meeting with the babyface, he needs to leave him laying too, so that the babyface has something to fight back for.
Yeah.
If you watched a movie and in the first 30 minutes they introduced the good guy, introduced the bad guy, and then the good guy rolled up and just kicked his butt, would it be a good movie? But what's good is in the last 5 minutes of the movie, when the babyface reaches down, finds that thing that makes him the good guy, and he digs something up that he didn't even know was in himself, and he lands that killing blow to the big bad guy, and he knocks him out, and he finally beats him. That's what makes a good movie, and that's what makes a good wrestling angle.
You just said the word motivation. I don't use half the moves I used when I was a babyface. What I do compared to what I do now. And since I'm supposed to have a European gimmick, it really doesn't need to be the same. Cravat rather than a headlock. Any American can do a cravat, and it doesn't turn any heads. But I mean, the whole style. Like, I don't do cross bodies. I don't throw a ton of drop kicks. It's just stuff I could do, but it's just like Jericho said: if you do nothing but cut your hair a different way, or something like that, so that it keeps you relevant and it keeps you from getting stale. I feel like I've had to completely reinvent stuff to be, to not get stale, and because everybody knew I'd do a crossbody, little stuff like that. I don't think I need to be throwing crossbodies. It's a big flashy move, and I know a lot of heels still throw crossbodies, but that's just me. That's just my opinion and my style. But
I always think when you talk about changing up, to me, there's never been a greater example than The Undertaker, of a guy that every time you see him, he goes away and he always comes back looking just a little different.
A little different.
Something's different about it. It may just be that he started out with the gray things on his legs, and then the next thing you know, he's not wearing the gloves. He's wearing and then he cuts his hair, and then he shaves his head, but then his hair's long. Sometimes the hat's different. Sometimes he never looks the same way when you see him. It's always just little subtle changes. Sometimes it's big changes. A lot of times it's just subtle changes with him, so he keeps himself fresh for 25 years.
Right.
The man's kept himself fresh.
And his motivation roughly has been the same,
Right.
which is incredible because, like you said, the motivation for a babyface, myself and other baby faces, we do crossbodies, moonsaults, stuff like that. Our motivation was to entertain the crowd.
Right.
That's not my motivation anymore. My motivation is to ground pound, suplex a bit here and there, cheat. That's my motivation. Undertaker's been able to do that with roughly the same motivation. He's just who he is, and that's what makes him so unique is he doesn't have to change up a ton, just his appearance a little bit, and people love it.
Right. All right, JC, looking back on the history, who would you say influences your style? And you can't say the great Scottish Prince Joshua Oglesby.
Well, if you take my number one out, I'll go with everything else. Mm-hmm. I try to take elements, like I said before, of a little bit of everything. As far as the storytelling aspect, I think you were talking about movies. I think a great example of that is when Jushin Thunder Liger finally gets revealed, and is it Kishin Liger? I think is how you say it. That whole story was just climactic. So I try to take a few aspects from a little bit of everything, but guys who I'm really studying right now, and when I say study, I mean Paul's play, writing it down, would be guys like Malenko, Benoit, Guerrero. One of the most underrated guys I think there's ever been is Brad Armstrong. I know Ace shares that, and Ace is actually one of the ones who's encouraged me to watch a lot of Brad. Watching a lot of stuff, a lot of Nigel McGuinness, a little bit of Doug Williams in there. I try to incorporate a little bit of technical stuff. There's so much flashiness going on the independent circuit right now. A lot of leg slapping, a lot of Toba Conhilos, and
bless you.
Hey, this is a family show.
A lot of stuff like that, so much that I think it's missed a lot of the technical side, and guys like Zack Sabre, Drew Gulak are bringing that back, and to me, that's becoming more entertaining to watch simply because it's not what you're going to see on the rest of the show.
Right.
And so, like, if I watch a PWG show, I'm eating the Zack Sabre Jr. stuff up and eating the Drew Gulak stuff up.
Yeah.
Watching them just go from the arm to the leg seamlessly. To me, technical wrestling has always been the most entertaining part because it shows that you can't just jump high, you can't just hit hard. You know how to manipulate somebody's body and do it effectively and smoothly. Yeah. So, I love the classic stuff. I love watching Bobby Eaton. I love watching Ric Flair. But to me, if I had to pick a couple of guys I would watch and just study, it'd be Malenko, Benoit, Brad Armstrong, Nigel McGuinness, guys like that.
Interesting. You got anything?
Am I allowed to speak?
Well, you might as well. All right, how about this? You and I had a conversation the other day about what makes a good wrestling match, what makes a good card, what makes a good wrestler. So what do you think of those three? What makes it, first of all, what's a wrestler look like?
I think a wrestler looks like the character he's trying to portray, and if he's portraying that character well enough, that is him. If he's trying to portray the character of a just 280-pound, muscled-up dude that's going to throw you around that doesn't have to throw a crossbody or a Hurricane Rana or whatever, that's a wrestler. A wrestler could be defined in many ways. It's like asking, what's your favorite match? There's so many, you could say, well, was the best match because this or that. But I think a wrestler looks like whatever he's trying to portray, and he does it in a way that the crowd either loves it or hates it.
Right. Believes it.
And believes it. I could break that up and probably talk for 30 minutes about it or more, but that's, in a nutshell, that's what I believe.
Right. Yeah, I've always thought that. Because if you don't believe who you are,
right,
then how can you expect, if you're just like trying to put a round peg in a square hole, if you don't believe who you are, nobody else is going to believe it either.
Right.
See, even back in the day when you had, what people call jobbers. Still, they were wearing wrestling boots that you just can't go to Walmart and buy wrestling boots. You can't go to Walmart and buy wrestling tights. And so for me, that's always been a big important thing, that when I go to a wrestling show, I don't want a guy walking out from the back who looks like me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even if he had my physique and my looks, he's got to do something to convince me I don't want to mess with him. And the one thing I've appreciated about you two guys and other guys in 3 Count is you invest in that. You invest in your look, your gear, looking, what you wear. People can't go to Walmart and wear. And I think that's a huge. That's a huge part of it.
I don't think unless somebody's really doing like a homeless gimmick or something. You're not going to see anybody on a 3 Count show wearing tennis shoes and jogging pants.
Right. That's definitely a prerequisite. I mean, I've wrestled for places that won't allow you to wrestle unless your armpits are shaved.
Huh.
Really?
Right. But I mean, there's I think that's not the most important thing in the world, but I mean, it shows that a guy cares about his look. It seems like me and Jordan were just talking on the way that the hairy chest is coming back. It seems like,
right.
For Michaels, it was never out of style. He pulled it off, but yeah, I mean, I think you got to take it seriously. Like, I was listening to something, and it was one of Cena's first matches before he got into WWE, and he walked to the back, and William Regal was on the card, and Cena really respected him. He went as to say he was nervous about wrestling, and he said he went out there and he said it was awful. He said it was awful before people in the universe was calling him awful.
Right.
The WWE universe. He went to the back, and he had trunks. Now he said he would buy every colored trunks there was to represent the sports team in that town. And he said he got to the back, and he's like, Mr. Regal, did you happen to say that? He said, I did. And he said, what you can do is buy wrestling boots. That way you at least look like a wrestler. Cena took it as a compliment. He thought it was a compliment, and then he realized down the road, he's like, that wasn't a compliment. He told me I sucked so bad that the least I could do was have wrestling boots.
Right.
At the least.
Yeah.
So to drive your point home,
right.
That's important.
What makes a good match?
I think having a story that starts off, slow and is a slow burn, not to come in hot, not to start off too quick, but to build to that point. Because if you start off too hot, you start off too flashy, you may have just not be able to top yourself from there.
Just like the good movie build you were talking about earlier, Mark.
So to me, the slow burn, starting slow, building to that point. And I think, you referenced the Ibushi-Alexander match. That match didn't start off with a bunch of high spots.
Right.
That match started off traditional chaining and built up to a missed moonsault to the outside and maxed out at the brain buster and the kicks and all. And I think it's just building to that point, making it make sense, telling the story of I've got to do something bigger if what I'm doing is just not working, and building to that point to where you've got to just pull something out of your hat.
Now, I just watched from the G1 Climax Okada and Ishii, and they do start out hot, where they both go for rainmakers like in the first minute, and it's like, what the crap, but then they got into a good pace, and then that turned out to be just not the match I expected, but just a phenomenal match. And I think, when you're talking about a wrestling card, and we've talked about this before, Mark and I, is when you go to the circus, you may not like the clowns, you may like the lions, you may like the trapeze, and I think one thing that we try to do at 3 Count is every match. I have been to a lot of shows where every match is the same tempo, same pace, same psychology, and I do think we really try to tell, if we've got 5 matches, we're telling 5 individual stories, but they all fit together to tell one big story. And So when you guys are watching, this Sunday, I don't know when this is coming. This episode's being released, but this is right before SummerSlam. So SummerSlam, when you're looking at a card, what makes a good card holistically?
I think what you said, with the circus, I think you have to have something that caters to everybody. Some people like the, two behemoths going at each other. They like that style. As a kid, I didn't respect the technical side of it, so I like to see, back when Brock was really big, I'd love to see him, give Jeff Hardy 3 power bombs without letting him go. I thought that was just awesome. Again, something you're not going to see your everyday person perform. And, but also Rey Mysterio, I enjoyed watching his work on WWE, because keep in mind, as a kid, that's all I watched.
Right.
I keep referencing, World Wrestling Entertainment stuff, but that's all I watched as a kid. I've graduated to, other stuff, but as far as a card goes, I think you just got to cater to everybody, and you got to have the main event make sense. I mean, if you got guys, which the Indies are plagued with, guys not watching early matches, doing the same spots, things like that. I don't think you need a choke slam to the floor in the second match. I don't think you need that. If the main event's going to have a big spot that's brutal, leave it for the main event.
Yeah.
Know your place on the card.
We were at a show.
I thought we were talking about wrestling, not card shows.
Sorry.
We were at a card show.
That's the worst joke I'll make throughout this whole thing, I promise.
You promise? All right. And there were 2 matches back to back that did, and I don't remember what the spot was, but it was the exact same to a T spot. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what's that? Why are you doing that in 2 matches? And I didn't know if guys just hadn't talked and said, hey, we're doing, I don't know, but it just was weird to me. It just didn't flow very good. And I do think you don't want to hold guys back. You want guys to do their best, but I definitely think, but sadly, so many guys only know how to work one style. If you tell them, all right, you can't leave your feet this match, they're gonna be like, whoa. They wouldn't know what to do. And I think that's the thing, is you gotta be a well-rounded performer to do the different styles, to tell wherever you're at on the card to fit.
Exactly. I don't think you need to hold guys back, but at the same time, if Buff Bagwell was talking about when he had his one WWE match, so don't look into the camera. He's like, man, that's all I do. Really? Is it going to be that? He got all worked up about it. It's like, dude, can you not look at the camera? You're working for the biggest company in the world. You can't do that little thing. Do something else, you know. And, if you said, don't leave your feet, okay, well, then I'll cut out this and that. I'm well-rounded enough that I can adapt. I think you need to be able to adapt.
And I've only been in the business a couple of years now, and I don't actively pretend to be a booker, but just from the outside perspective as a wrestler, nothing is a little more aggravating than when you go to a show, and this has not happened on a 3-count show. This is an outside show, which we will leave anonymous. But, I'll give Ace props. He's one of the best heels you'll see on an indie show in the Carolinas because he's so quick-witted and witty. And I watched him and a couple other guys do can't remember if it was a handicap match or a triple threat maybe, but the match was probably 15, 20 minutes. I don't think they bumped for the first 5 minutes.
Right.
All they did was get their heat by, it was 2 heels and a face, and they just they jawed with the crowd.
Right.
And they got the crowd emotionally invested into the match, and they were cheering for the good guy. And I don't think there was more than a handful of bumps in that match. And that match was second or third on the card, and then you immediately come back. And again, there's nothing wrong with your cruiserweight high spot match, but you took a crowd that was emotionally invested in the show, and they got so far out that Ace got chased by an old man with a cane that had a gun showed at him. I mean, it's old school,
right?
But you see a crowd getting emotionally involved,
And then you have two guys come out and they don't even acknowledge the crowd. It's almost like they're wrestling to an empty arena. They're just running spots. You can tell it's been talked about. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think that needs to be the match that follows a good story told that invokes the crowd like that.
Yeah.
To piggyback on that just a little bit, you said they didn't work the crowd. I think a good babyface who's wrestling for promotion the first time, I used to be guilty of this, but I was taught by someone, way more versed and skilled than I was, that, if you're in a city for the first time and you walk out and you're, come on, just, going crazy, why should they cheer for you? Just because the bad guy went out first? You've got to earn that a little bit. Come out, slap a couple hands, do whatever, perform your craft in the ring, then get them behind you. You've not deserved, or you don't deserve, and you haven't earned their respect.
Right.
You haven't earned their cheers yet.
Yeah.
Work a program a little bit, come back, they should know you, then come out, come on, know, then they should pop for you if you got over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, greatest worker of all time.
I like what Steve Austin says. He thought that Shawn Michaels was the best, he thought Ric Flair was the best, and Ric Flair said Shawn Michaels was the best. Mm-hmm. And as far as all around, I'm not the biggest Shawn Michaels fan. I know, it's like, how are you not a huge Michaels fan? But I appreciate his work. I respect his work. It was just something about him never thoroughly entertained me. I guess because I was just such a big Austin mark from day one. Nobody else could entertain me other than Austin. Right. But now, him and Flair, the two different. I'd say Michaels and Flair.
I think you're crazy if you don't put Flair up there. How many different kinds of opponents did he wrestle and make it work, from guys like Vader, Mick Foley, Terry Funk, Steamboat? But as far as, a guy that I love to watch, it's not a typical answer, is Bobby Eaton. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it gets much better than those two. Steamboat's up there as well, but Bobby Eaton, I think Bobby Eaton and Ricky Morton could put on one of the best matches you'll ever see, because they know how to sell. Bobby's going to make Ricky look like, the toughest guy of all time, and Morton's going to take his butt kicking and sell it like he's on the verge of death.
Right.
So I don't think it gets much better than that.
Big Show.
Big Show.
No, if we're talking, all time, a wise man once said, maybe even on this show, Harley Race was the greatest traveling world champion of all time. And
probably me that said that.
That was you. Yeah, I don't know. Do you look at who drew? Do you look at work?
When I said Michaels, I'm thinking all around, had all the elements. Flair wasn't the athlete Michaels was.
Right.
That's to take nothing away from Flair. But as far as drew money, character, could make somebody look good, athletic ability, you got to think about Michaels.
I'm just trying to think of somebody different than what y'all said. Y'all took all the good answers.
Well, Hulk Hogan became a multi-millionaire having 10-minute matches and cupping his ear.
Yeah.
Right. And I took your question as all around.
Right.
He's not in my. He's not even in my top 5.
Right.
But if I had to list
in-ring ability, yeah.
But if I had to list
nowhere near
10 of my favorite matches that elicited the kid in me, Hulk Hogan would be in
Hogan
2 or
Savage.
3. I didn't even think about that
Hogan
one.
and Warrior.
Hogan and Rock,
Andre.
Hogan and Andre. That was the magic of Hogan. The guy had
Hogan just knew. He's got a charisma that not too many people have. Anyway, he's
Right.
larger than life. He looks larger.
He should have never been a
He doesn't
babyface.
look like Heath.
Yeah, he doesn't look like anybody. Nobody else on the planet looks like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Nobody's got that hair going on.
No,
like that.
nobody else. Like Baron Corbin, bless his heart. His Rocky is working on that skullet right now.
He's got that McDonald's hairline.
It's awful, man.
That's crazy.
But Hogan's the only guy that's ever been able to pull off male pattern baldness.
Yeah.
And still be a multimillionaire. Or at least making a multimillionaire. Well, Steve Austin had it, but he was smart enough to shave his head.
Right. I mean,
As far as what elicits the kid in me, like you said, Steve Austin.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
You sure you don't want to say Rick Martel?
I'm positive.
That's great.
We are strike force.
That's
Yes,
awesome.
we will strike with force. Hey, so I was just sometimes I'll go on Internet Fight Database and they list all the 5-star matches of all time as rated by the Pro Wrestling Observer newsletter. And one of the matches was the Sheep Herders and the Fantastics from Crockett Cup. And in my attempt of trying to find that match, which I found it's, clipped, it's not its entirety, I forgotten that Rick Martel and Dino Bravo were supposed to be in that first Crockett Cup. And I remember as a kid thinking, I mean, that's 86. I'm like, Rick Martel, he's coming for the AW. Oh, my goodness, we're going to finally see. And then they had to forfeit for something, so...
He loves Rick Martel. If you didn't, that's a long-running joke.
I didn't even see a Rick Martel match till like 2 years ago.
You're full of crap.
I think Brad had the AW.
Full of crap.
I'm not a big Rick Martel. I don't know where this. I don't know where. I need to go back and listen to all of our episodes.
I don't
see,
remember where it started.
Because I think I said I don't know.
I know you got giddy when you were watching the '92 Rumble when Rick Martel came out.
Well, that was post it being a gimmick that I was a big Rick Martel fan. Listen, he and Tito Santana, I mean, they were.
Oh, shut up. All right, favorite movie. I like to get into people's minds a little bit.
It's funny because I just had a talk with you the other day about the number 37 episode that y'all did, and your most least favorite movie was it Random Hearts? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
I cracked up because you had a go-to movie that you just absolutely hated.
Yeah, man, and I do hate it.
But now it would be Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah, that kind of sucks too. That's one of the most overrated movies ever. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, and I was held back when I had an ex-girlfriend who didn't allow me to watch movies like this because she thought they were stupid. But once I got a hold of them, it'd have to be Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It's a tie between that and Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I have no shame.
Cool.
For years, and it's still a thing now. In our household, it's not, hey, what movie do you want to watch? It's what Harry Potter movie do you want to put in the player. And
I'm going to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in a few months.
I've never went.
Yeah,
I see all of these pictures, and I'm like,
I'm not really going for that. It's just where I'm going to be. And so
It just happens to be in the general
it just happens
area.
To be in the general.
a cell phone might catch you in front of one of the alleys.
Or drinking a butterbeer.
Probably, is it alcoholic? I don't think.
I don't
butterbeer
think it
is.
I think
is.
so. I think it's just like a cream
I'll
soda.
probably be drinking like real beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just stick a butter, put a stick of butter in it and call it a butterbeer.
What
I'm gonna
about
have a buttered biscuit with a beer.
Jordan? What about you? What's your favorite movie?
Oh, that's easy. Braveheart.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Man, you really
He's
just.
really taking the.
How
Talk
he-
about a guy who lives his gimmick.
How heavy was it? How heavy was that bus that you just picked up and threw me under?
And in all seriousness, it really. I know it kind of works out that it's part of the gimmick, but it's always been
is
my
a great
favorite
movie.
movie. I own the VHS, the DVD, the Blu-ray. It's on my Vudu account.
Yeah.
It's just always been one of my favorite movies. I love stuff like that. The Game of Thrones, Gladiator.
Yeah.
I'm also big into horror.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
So, yeah. What's your favorite horror movie?
What's your favorite horror? Like, what's your favorite franchise?
I grew up on Halloween.
Oh yeah, man.
So when the 8-disc Blu-ray set came out last year, my wife pre-ordered it.
Yeah, I got the producer's cut of Part 6.
Oh, is it any good?
Yeah, no,
Is that
even
the one where it's really it's really kind of voodoo-esque.
Yeah, it gets all into like the druids and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
I think I have seen that one. The end of it is when the doctor is laying in the middle of the stones or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
they
have
go
seen
back
it
to
then.
that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is my favorite, but that's probably my favorite franchise.
Yeah, I like that, and I'm big into Rob Zombie as well. So really
yeah.
excited about 31
Yeah,
coming
man.
out. So
Yeah, we're going to see that, so I'm looking forward to it.
So, hey, listen, where can people go to connect with the Highland Embassy online and follow you? I know you guys.
They don't know.
oh, we know. It's just the prince is so busy.
He's so busy. He's
other
like
people.
any other rich celebrity. He doesn't run his own Twitter account.
On Twitter, you can find us at Highland Embassy, not the Highland, just at Highland Embassy. And on Facebook, you can just search for the Highland Embassy, and it should come right up.
I'll tell you what I think you guys need.
What's
and
that?
I mean this. It seems to me like there's something missing from the Highland Embassy.
Oh, without a doubt. Our best work it has yet to be displayed.
I agree.
This is not the embassy is not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
So looking at the future, I really see big,
Yes.
huge things coming.
Yeah.
I do too. There's a lot of stuff in the works. I won't reveal my hand just yet, but yes.
But people should stay tuned.
Yes.
Stay tuned,
Right.
because there's big things to come.
Yeah, and I'm very excited for things at 3 Count, because I do think we're trying to tell stories, and we're trying to do things that other indie promotions are not trying to do, and so I'm really excited about that. So really appreciate you guys taking the time out to join us today. We're almost at the end of our tape here. So, hey, if you're listening to this, check out 3 Count Pro Wrestling on YouTube, on Twitter, at 3CPW, and at 3 Count Pro Wrestling on Facebook. And
3 Count Pro Wrestling. Just be on alert. Be on alert. I think somebody ought to put 3 Count on notice. Y'all know how I feel about them. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think that what they've done to you is just atrocious.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, you have been the voice of 3 Count Pro Wrestling. I hear this other voice. It squeaks every now and then. I think it goes by the name of Meath Hulligan, something like that. Keith,
yeah.
Keith Mulligan. If I was to pull a Jericho, Keith Mulligan. Yeah, but I think what they've done to you is ridiculous. I think there needs to be a change in power. Hopefully, Tim Smith will prevail.
Let's hope.
And
if he doesn't, it seems to me like maybe the Highland Embassy ought to think about taking over and running things for a while.
Here's the thing: the embassy, we've sort of already taken over.
True.
We just allow Eric Bowman, because he's a man that doesn't have a lot. I mean, yeah, he's the mayor, but of what? Liberty?
What? Right.
Of what? That's like saying I'm the mayor of this conference room.
It's like he's going around claiming to be the world's tallest midget. You're still a midget at the end of the day.
when have I claimed that? You are putting words in my mouth.
Well, it's about time somebody puts them in there.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? What does that even
So if
See,
you could sum up.
Mark marked out for that. It didn't even make it made like half sense, but Mark still marked out for it. That's how over we are with Mark Whitman.
That's right.
Listen, you can get over with me by going on iTunes and leaving us a 5-star rating and review. DoubleDropKick.com. Download the episode. Hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Heath Mulligan.
I'm at the DDK show.
Go.
I am the Scottish Prince, Joshua Oglesby, and if you do not do these things that we have instructed you to do, heads will roll.
Hey, and for the Double Dropkick Show, I'm Heath Mulligan.
And I'm Mark Whitman.
And that's it this week, fans. So long for now.